Well, you know, as you approach any election, and in this case, the presidential election, there are only two outcomes. Your candidate wins or your candidate loses. And I think for the so-called Raila orphans, they had 100% faith in the candidature of Mr. Raila Amolo Odinga. And as far as they were concerned, their probability of winning was 100%. Correct. In fact, they approached these elections with missionary zeal. They were very committed, and you saw them breaking. And
very confident.
Yeah, and very confident. And they were confident because they had been told that, in fact, Mr. Raila Amolo Odinga has won elections before. And the only reason why he has not been sworn in is that he did not have the system. And this time around, he's got the system. So probability of him winning and being sworn in was almost 100%. But in my view, having taken that risk, it's now very clear that they're going to be in the political cold at least for the next 10 years. And from the ones who are listed over here, I don't know whether they'll survive the political cold for 10 years because they're going to lose their power and they're going to lose influence. And within the next 10 years, there'll be new kingmakers in the various parts of Kenya. Like, for instance, when you look at Wycliffe Oparanya, it's going to be the political cold for the next 10 years. And from Western Kenya, you have...
But is it? I mean, we see shifting of allegiances even mid, a new dispensation as people, creates new friends.
No, but for this particular case, President Ruto has got his team firmly in place. And as far as these so-called Raila orphans are concerned, the train has already left the station. The horse has bolted. As I was saying earlier on, for Wycliffe Oparanya, for him to re-emerge as a powerful politician from Western Kenya, he has to contend with the Honorable Musalia Mudavadi and Honorable Moses Wetangula. Those two gentlemen, right now, they're in the middle of things. You cannot shake them. For Hassan Joe, you've got Honorable Muvuria, and you've got Honorable Amason Kingi right from the coast. So probability of shaking them is almost zero.
All right, let's hear from Ishmael. What is your take on this? What happens to these men and women who are ardent supporters of Raila Odinga?
Thanks, and thank you for hosting us. I have a different view from what my brother is explaining as their fate. And also, when I look at the media, you see, already they have been branded as orphans, that's number one, which I think is not correct. And then they are also, we're wondering, what will this, where are they going? These gentlemen, you look at Joho, Wamalwa, Ngilu, Munya, Wycliffe Oparanya, and several others, I think in the inner pages, we are asking what they will do. First and foremost, Kananu, Tuju, you look at Kenyan Jui.
In fact, let's go to page, I think the full report is on page 4 and 5. Right.
Page 4, isn't it?
Right, yes. Correct. Yes, continue.
Nderito Murithi,
right, so
Muhisa Kitui. These are very, honestly speaking, in Kenyan standards, these are rich boys and ladies here. These are very rich guys. And what will happen? They will be fine. They will retreat to their normal home offices or city offices, and we have examples of several former ministers who did not succeed in the Kibaki regime, in Uhuru regime. They went back into their businesses.
Correct.
You realize that we kind of put them in some basket of condemnation and enjoying them, but really they will be fine. But I know what Dismas is talking about is trying to communicate the idea that politically speaking, they will probably be dead. I think we are moving as a small democracy towards what we see in more established democracies. If you are a Republican, really you are a Republican. And if you don't win for the 4 years, for example, in the United States, you are still a Republican. If you're a Democrat, you remain a Democrat now, and unless you change and you are allowed to shift, allegiance. But in Kenya, we are not actually shifting, on lines of ideologies or what your party believes in. We shift because we want to eat. And this is, of course, because winner take it all. And William Ruto, as the president of the country, before he was the president, he argued in Bomas very strongly. How do you deal with this issue of winner take it all? If Kenyans listened today, nobody would feel an orphan. But they didn't listen. They kicked out the BBI. Now William Ruto is the president, he's in State House. He calls the shots. So for me, I think we are doing very well when we have a country where 7.2 million people have declared, you know, have won through, you know, competitive voting, rather elections, and we have another 6.9. Of course, again, these are representative because 6.9 probably represent about 25 million people, while 7.2 represent probably about 30 or so million people in Kenya. So we are not even divided, but we belong to different groupings politically. And I think it should be like that. The problem is when you feel that now, because my team did not win, now you start, you know, because also the executive historically was not being favorable to those who lost. And that is why you saw Luo Nyanza and several parts of the country were not developed for a very long time. But I think, and I'm impressed, probably you will discuss that later, that the president has gone back to Nyanza itself and said that we will work with everybody across the body.
Okay, I know Dismas is of a different view.
Yeah, the point
he wants a one-party system.
No, far from it. The point I was making, when you look at the so-called Raila orphans, and the people who have won, who have secured either elective seats or have been nominated to the cabinet, the common denominator is all of them are rich or they are wealthy. So when my friend Ishmael says that they're not going to have a crisis, obviously I did not mean that they'll have a challenge buying ugali or buying fish. No. The common denominator is all of them are wealthy, all of them are rich. But the difference is about power and influence. And we all know for a fact that in Kenya, for you to stand a chance of winning any election, you must have power and you must have influence. And then on the issue of Republicans and Democrats, he has actually buttressed my issue, that in Kenya there is really no, I mean, we don't have political parties anchored on any ideology. Is that if you've got resources, you beat up people from your community into a straight line, you become a regional kingpin, then you come to the national level. And also this idea of the winner takes it all, for me I think is an issue that needs to be deconstructed. When you go for an election, there are two outcomes. You're going to win or you are going to lose. If you lose, accept you've lost, go back to your private business or go to philanthropy and wait for 5 years. We are not going to have a democracy where we say, run for political office. If you become number one, you win. And if you become number two, you still win. No. Let it be clear cut that if you are running for any seat and Mura in a wisdom has decided that you are not the winner, you go back home. You go back to philanthropy, you go back to your business and prepare for another race.